For today's motor track test, we've swapped our traditional Bryant Park home for Sydney Motorsport Park. And that's because this thing requires a little bit more space. It's the new 992 version of the Porsche 911 GT3. I'm going to take it for a spin, tell you what it's like to drive, and then go for a lap time. Before that, a quick word on the specs. At the rear here, we've got a 4-litre naturally aspirated flat six producing 375 kilowatts and 470 Newton meters. That's attached to a 7-speed dual clutch gearbox and an electronically controlled limited slip diff. Wheels are 21 inches wrapped in 315/30 Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tyres and 380mm brake rotors with 4 piston calipers. At the front, the wheels are 20 inches with 255/35 tyres and the brakes are 408mm rotors with 6 piston calipers, though even larger carbon ceramic rotors are an option. There are a couple of other very big changes to cover, but I'll do that out there. Here we go, Porsche 992 GT3 Sydney Motorsport Park. A lot to cover here, so I'll just drive around the track, talk you through the car as we go, like normal, various bits of the car. First thing to do is put it in track mode. Drive mode switch now on a GT3 for the first time. Basically adjusts engine mapping and throttle mapping and gear shift response, so I don't actually have to use the paddles if I don't want to. The gear shift response is pretty amazing, picks the right gear so intuitively that it kind of almost renders these paddles redundant. However, I will use them just so I can shut the car up a bit, as it is pretty loud. So the first thing to look at is, on paper, the 992 GT3 is extremely evolutionary, even by 911 standards. Another 10 horsepower, so another 7 kilowatts, another 10 Newton meters, another 10mm wider tyres, all these 10 incremental changes everywhere, a little bit bigger, but there are 2 big changes in this car that need to be covered. The first is the front suspension. So the 992 GT3 now uses double wishbone front suspension instead of a regular strut. Now that is pretty extraordinary because it's the only 911 to do so, I think, apart from the 911 RSR GTE car. The benefit of that is that it's much more stable under high load. In terms of camber adjustment and stuff like that, it stays much more stable, which means wheels don't move around, more confidence in the car. But as you can hear, let's start with this engine. Oh my God. 4-litre flat six, 375 kilowatts now, 470 Newton meters. Maybe those numbers don't seem that spectacular this day and age, but this can still do 0 to 100 in 3.4 seconds, 0 to 200 in 10.8 seconds. But who really cares how fast it is when it sounds like this? 7, 8, 9. It is awesome. Great throttle response, perfectly matched to the amount of traction, moves around a little bit under load. There we go. Woo. It's hard to say anything about the engine and the gearbox because it just does everything you want it to. I mean, I'll just let you listen to it because it sounds awesome. And we're still pulling like 250, 245, 250 down the main straight here. This is a very fast car. However, a GT3 is all about the chassis. And I don't know, it's going to be hard to do this review and not just sound sycophantic, but it's better than ever. It's more stable, it's more grippy, it's more communicative. There's less and less of the bad 911 stuff, like its pitchiness and its ability to over-rotate under brakes because of the rear engine. There's less of that, which gives you more confidence, but it's not in any way dull. Here we go, 190, 200, 210, 220, 230, 240. Through here, this turn one, might as well just talk you around a lap. So who through here, turn 1, 180 at the exit. So much grip because of the downforce, because that's the other point apart from the suspension. This car has mega downforce now. With the rear wing in its performance setting, which it's in at the moment, it has 150% more downforce at 200 k's an hour than the old car. So through turn 1, where we're almost doing 200, it is really getting stuck to the ground. In 911 fashion, if you go in too hard or if you pick up the throttle a bit early, you do get understeer still, but oh, it's so good the way it just flows. It flows across a corner. It's always subtly jinking around over these bumps. It's subtly moving around, adjusting itself to your inputs, but without ever feeling sort of wayward. It always feels under control. Fantastic traction, of course, being rear-engined. Oh, it's fast. It's so confidence-inspiring. You can carry the brakes. There is still a technique required to get the most out of it. You've got to carry the brake and keep the weight on the nose, but there's so much front-end grip. And then you can pick the throttle up so early. I've got ESP all the way on and it doesn't matter. Like, it's not really cutting it at all. You can drive this thing so hard without ever worrying the electronics. This really is one of the systems that if it's coming on, you have made a mistake. So we actually drove this car in the wet earlier as well, and yeah, this thing isn't designed to run in the wet, but it actually still provided a lot of feedback and had more grip than you'd expect. If it was really sort of standing water, forget it. It's not going to work. These cup tyres just ain't going to work. But even in damp conditions, it still had plenty of grip and provided plenty of feedback about what it's doing. It gives you confidence to push, and it still went pretty damn quick. Went for a hot lap with Luke Youlden earlier as well, which was just otherworldly. Really puts you in your place in terms of what you think you can drive like. But on a track like this, Phillip Island, Sydney Motorsport Park, flowing fast, it's just awesome. Like, they've just done such a good job with it. Every time they keep raising the bar and you think, how are they going to do it? But God knows what the RS is going to be like, because there isn't a lot of holes in this thing. What doesn't it do? I don't know. I can't really think of any way to improve it. Engine's awesome. One of the coolest things is that wheel still bobbles a bit in your hands. Even with this new double wishbone front end, the wheel sort of wiggles over the bumps and stuff, makes you feel involved. And that engine, I mean, listen to that. It just would never fail to raise a smile. Ah dear. I want to say something's wrong with it, because that's my job as a reviewer. I've got to pick holes in it, but like, these cars have been lapping all day. 3 or 4 journeys in all of them. They've done, I don't know, 50, 60 laps. They're still bang on. Brakes are still good, tyres are still good. Keep sticking fuel in it. Does the job. So, what I'm going to do now is put the stopwatch on, go for a lap, and let's see what I can get out of this thing. Unsurprisingly, Porsche has done it again. The new 911 GT3 is somehow even better than its predecessor. It's faster, easier to drive, quicker in the corners. The fact that it could do that lap time with an amateur like me driving is just pretty astounding. And that is why it gets a track score of 10 out of 10.